Now, I wanted to pick up on this bit, right? Because recruiting, I think, is where this Texas staff should shine. And it remains to be seen about development. Now, Kyle Flood and what he's done with that offensive line in the period that he's been there, no argument from me, right? I don't know how much I expect to really rely on a special teams coach in Jeff Banks to develop people, but, that's part of the job. You one of the assistants, you get credit for all of that. I have a question as it pertains to how good is the class is going to be, because we're talking about 2019 when Texas finishes number 5 in the country, I believe, in recruiting. And now, you got Maalik Murphy, who decided to come on his own doggone terms to UT to take a drive around. My man is from Cal. All right, let's talk about Maalik real quick, because I think that there are some folks that aren't savvy to who Maalik Murphy is. 6'4", right? Has all the tools, and I get we talking about this. How come everybody want to compare their dude to Cam Newton while nobody wants to give Cam Newton any credit is beyond me. 2015 MVP, took him all the way to the Super Bowl. Isn't that
funny?
Right. Everybody want a Cam Newton type. Don't nobody want to give Cam Newton his props. That said, what is your feeling about Maalik Murphy, and how do you feel about him taking a visit, self-guided, as the term is now during the dead period, to UT?
Sure. So those are you're digging into now the ties that Steve Sarkisian has back towards the West Coast. Obviously being the former coach at USC and his time at Washington, he understands that dynamic very well. Now, California, they didn't play high school football last year, and Maalik was one of those guys that in the camp circuit, 7-on-7s, all those type of things, was just tearing it up. And you see, just the any of the times you get to see him throw, the raw arm talent is insane, and he's massive, like you said. Now, when people see big arm and, black and he's tall, they think Cam Newton and things of that sort. And it's annoying, but moving forward, he's got some of that presence. I'm going to compare him to one of my brothers that just won a Super Bowl here, Mr. Byron Leftwich, back in the day. I see some similarities there to his time at Marshall when he broke all those records and was a top 10 pick.
But Byron was a statue.
Right. I'm saying though, in terms of the good traits that Byron had, okay. Maalik actually movement wise, throwing on the run, very, very good. Very, very good. I'm more so talking about, he's a guy though that Byron, he could hit that back foot and then launch the thing 50 yards and hit somebody right in the hands. That's a rare trait, especially for a high school kid. So, and we're talking about, Quinn Ewers, if he stays solid to Ohio State, and I hope we get to talk about some of these Ohio State quarterback things here later, but, if he stays solid over there, where does Texas move to? And so leveraging those relationships on the West Coast, also some other players at some of those other high schools that Maalik has ties to, that Steve Sarkisian will also have ties to. So we're opening ourselves up not just to hold down Texas, which is a priority, don't get me twisted, but also what Alabama's doing. When you look at Alabama's national championship game and the whole defense, or the whole secondaries from Fort Lauderdale and Miami, they're not discriminating on where they're getting some of these brothers from. So Texas needs to, I think, follow that same path of thinking with their recruiting.
No, Sarkisian having an understanding of the West Coast is terribly important, right? But you do closing as a head coach. You don't really do recruiting as a head coach. You take on a couple that are very important to you. Like Nick Saban is still recruiting JT Tuimoloau out of Washington. But the thing that bothers me about the West Coast ties for Sarkisian and Kwiatkowski is that I don't get a read on whether Kwiatkowski was the brains of the defense or the dude bringing guys in. Because they had, and with my whole heart I love this, they had a defensive unit that was nicknamed Death Row, which my whole heart, right? And Vita Vea is that dude, right? Taylor Rapp was that dude. Byron Murphy was that dude. Buda Baker was that dude. He can develop them, right? And that's been what we've all been dunking on Texas for, is you get all these dudes and they stay a 5-star in high school. They don't develop into a first-round draft pick 3 years or even 4 years later, right? You mentioned all these dudes that you say were underdrafted. I tend to think that the NFL doesn't actually deal in trying not to draft people. You know,
those guys were more the guys I was referring to, though. They weren't the 5-star guys. Your point is valid in terms of the 5-star guys that don't turn into first-round picks. That's why we've had, that's some of the negative recruiting that is easily used against Texas. So I'm talking about is guys who are, lower tier recruits, 3 stars or lower 4 stars that ended up getting developed. So Texas has had some success there. But to your point, they need to hit. When they get a Jatavian Sanders there, Jatavian Sanders needs to leave Texas as a first-round pick.
Right.
That's the point.
Right. No, that's 100%. So, and thinking about Murphy, the other reason I think this is important is you hit on the pipeline in the West Coast, right? You already went to Saguaro a couple of times, right? You can go get the Bijan Robinson of the world, and you've proven that, right? So Arizona, I look at the state of Arizona, I say, if Herm Edwards or Jed Fish now was able to just lock up that state, they'd be competitive because they put out squads, right? California puts out squads. But what worries me is if you don't get Maalik Murphy, where do you turn, right? Cool, you have a quarterback in the boat and you got him relatively early in the cycle. That's what it's going to take for you to have a top 5 recruiting class. Everywhere you look, getting that blue chip quarterback, preferably a 5-star quarterback in the boat, gives you the best opportunity to finish inside the top 5. And that's what we're talking about, right? The idea that LSU can finish with a top 3 recruiting class in a bad year, right? I believe 6-5 is the number for them. 5 losses. Secondary violations, self-reported violations.
You brought up the violations, not me.
I don't care nothing about how they feel about it. It's the truth. I don't care nothing about it. But Ed Orgeron still closed, and he closed without a defensive coordinator. He closed firing a defensive coordinator. He closed losing his offensive scheme. Ensminger retired, right? You bring in Jake Peets, you bring in Durante Jones, good coaches, but not names. You know what I mean? The only name that's still there is your man Orgeron, right? And yet that class is still phenomenal. I look at it and I say, yeah, that's because they had Garrett Nussmeier in there early. That dude committing in May of last year was tremendous for them. It kept them in the running for Corey Foreman. It allowed them to lock up Mason Smith. I believe they got the top 4 players in the state of Louisiana for the first time since 2016. That's what I expect Texas to do next year. But if you don't miss on a dude like Maalik Murphy, let's assume for the sake of the argument, you're not going to flip Quinn Ewers. Where else is there to look? And that I don't expect you to have that answer, right? I do expect people to ponder it.
Yeah. So the other name that's become hot here in the state of Texas and more so locally is Kate Klubnik out of Westlake.
Beat Ewers at Westlake, yeah.
Yeah. That beat him in the state in the state championship in the Dodge Bowl. So that would be the move. And I know he has, I think, legacy ties to A&M, but that's a guy that could win, especially with Steve being there locally and him being the quarterback whisperer, could pivot and get that done. So I'm not terribly freaked out about the quarterback situation for 2022, honestly, with the options that are on the table. There's different directions they can go.